Wow.
Hi there, I'm Curt Clendenin with KaPow Intergalactic Film Festival 2021. We are here with Aidan Hall, and Aidan Hall has put together the closest thing to silence, which I highly suggest you guys go out and check out. How you doing today?
I am yeah, I'm doing pretty all right. It's funny. Yeah, I've just like that all of this like submission stuff was done like so long ago throughout the year, and now it's like it's still living it up. It's weird, especially because like I've just been doing like other stuff, preparing, like going on with my life, and then yeah, out of the blue comes Kurt.
Well, it was
With
crazy because the last time we actually had a real life with people there in front of us was in 2019. So then once the
wow.
pandemic came along, we're like, okay, we got to change gears. How are we going to do this? And
Yeah.
so it just happened to be perfect that we came along filmocracy.com and they do this kind of thing. So that's how we're able to like get out those movies out into the rest of the world. And I just can't wait to see what's going to happen with this, man. Your
Yeah.
movie, the closest thing to silence, what's so interesting is so many times I talk with filmmakers about when you got low budgets, your creativity expands. Now, you made this during the pandemic, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we did. It was originally a theater production that I was doing with some of my friends as part of a project, and we were going to put it on in a theater. But literally, like a week before opening night, bam, pandemic. I had everybody had to leave, and we were almost like kind of yeah at a loss of what to do. And then like out of nowhere, just comes this idea to like adapt it to film.
Man, I mean, it's so cool because you have so many shots in there. You got so many great drone shots. You got so much just footage in there that is just amazing. The glowing jellyfish, and there's so much neon in this movie. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, like it's that is kind of like the essence of like zero budget because I'm not sure if it was like necessarily in the show notes, but that's all stock footage that we took and basically we focused on making the movie like an audio play, adding those visuals to it. So it's kind of it is kind of weird in that sense where it is like very focused on the audio, very focused on like the poetry of it, and then yeah, the visuals were almost like we hadn't necessarily thought of them before because that wasn't part of the original theater production. But yeah, bringing those in, it was really fun to just go through and like there's so much weird stock footage out there. Like just I think like a month after the pandemic came, there was one of like this guy like shirtless in a pink background, gold glitter coming down from the like sky, and then he was holding up this blank placard that just says Corona on it. Like I don't know how people get the budget to do that, but it was that one nearly made it into the film,
Oh my
nearly.
God. That's so cool, man, that you just, like where there were limitations, you go, all right, man, now it's time to now it's really time to expand the imagination. I mean, you had a big cast in there. So were all the people who contributed their voices, were these people who were a part of the original theater production?
Yeah, all except one. One of them was also directing like another theater production, but hers, because hers was a play that was like very used to being staged, whereas when I had written The Closest Thing to Silence, it was very abstract already. We kind of just came to the decision. It's like, yo, why don't you come on board and like be part of this? Pretty much. Yeah, it was.
Wow. It is so cool, man. You really expanded that creativity. And that was one of the things that's interesting you brought that up because I was going to say this movie, it's like poetry in motion. The audience is listening to what it's like. They're listening to the poetry and they're looking at the images, and then the audience gets to figure out how to fit what they see with what they hear. And
Yeah.
it's just really cool, man. It's great how you put the whole thing together.
Oh man, thank you. Like, yeah, it's funny because I guess before this, I had never like really written like a conventional play. I would say I was more into poetry, and then did this playwriting program that my school had, where in England there's this theater called the National Theatre, and they're like the biggest theater in England. They're in London. They're huge. They have like learning programs all throughout the country, and the competition is that you enter a play, and if it gets selected within a short list of 9 plays, it gets like a rehearsed reading by professional actors at the National. So if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have like experimented with the medium, so it is those like coincidences that get this sort of art form experimentation out.
Oh my gosh. And the fact that you were keen enough to tune into that. And, it's interesting what things bring out certain inspirations out of us. And had you not followed your calling and go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write this thing for this thing, we wouldn't
Mhm.
be having this conversation right now today because you just
It's
followed the inspiration, didn't you?
Yeah, and it's like it's led me to think about like life's pathways in that similar sort of sense. It's like I feel like a lot of people might sort of like regret decisions that they've made, or like always think back on the decisions that they've made in their past life. But I think it's following your intuition and letting those experiences happen, letting mistakes happen, that bring about where you are now and can bring like some of the best stuff that we've seen out there. Like so many artists, it's come from real experience, real some negative experience. That's what's so powerful. Negative experience being given an art and people being allowed to like feel it. That is brilliant art. And yeah, following life to wherever it takes you is so important in that.
It's interesting because I saw in your description that you try to make spiritual cinema, and it's cool just talking with you right now. I can tell that you're tuned into that idea of, appreciating the synchronicities, being intentional with your manifestations of reality, those kinds of things. And, like you're saying, following your intuition, because what happens the more you follow your intuition and the more it pays off, now you got all those examples in your brain as to how it paid off, then that gives you permission, so to speak, to make the next biggest leap.
Exactly. And that's like the biggest leap that I think we like all should like be looking out for, because before stuff like this, like I was so afraid of being judged, of failing, of what people would think of me. But it's actually like this vulnerability and just willingness to let the universe like take you where it wants to go, that is what brings out the best in stuff, like it's how a lot of really great stuff gets made, and it's how like life is lived to its truest, I suppose.
Well, and that philosophy is a huge attest as to how this thing came about. Because if you had been in that a very closed sort of like, okay, this is the only way that this thing has got to be created. Oh, forget it. We don't have a theater now. We can't do this. All right. Okay, it's all done. But no, you're
Mhm.
like, huh? It starts going, hey, I got an idea. Maybe you want to try
Yeah,
this. And you're going, what'd you just
yeah,
say?
exactly. Speak up, I can't hear you. But yeah, like exactly. It's
Speak up, kid. Here, have a caramel, kid.
my shoulder. Yeah, you have like your creative angel and demon on there. Exactly. And somehow they're like one of those old sports announcers from the 1930s. Speak up, kid. We can't hear you. Sing.
Come on, kid. Follow that dream. Come on, will you?
Yeah,
Just do it.
yeah. Come on. Yeah, exactly. I think that was what the voice should have been, the closest thing to silence, just a bunch of like really like pithy sports commentators. We live in cities. See? My friend August, who was a cast member in this, he often makes a joke about the city being called like New City, because it is very sort of reminiscent of almost like the hedonism and entrapment that you get in the sort of Blade Runner movies.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, always like the neon stuff. So he's like, "Come on, everyone, we're going to New City." And we just have this like constant running joke of like figuring out what the different qualities of New City are. It's like, yeah, nightclubs are just pools of glow stick liquid. Sort
Dude,
of.
you're world building, man. And it's so funny by you guys just joking about this. I have a feeling, I mean, my intuition, blipping on my antennas, tell me that this is actually you're going to get so good with the world building of this world, man. It's going to be inevitable where you're just going to have a whole series of movies that take place in Neon City. Oh, New
Yeah,
City, all right.
yeah, New City.
Welcome to
Exactly. I
New
feel like
City.
that's how like yeah, that must be how the guys from Blade Runner came up from that. Exactly. Just like riffing around, shooting the stuff, and like Just comes to that, oh my God.
Well, that's how a lot of the great art gets made. There's a quote that Dan Aykroyd once made where he goes, I like to think of, wouldn't it be crazy if, so when you got that kind of mindset of like, wouldn't it be crazy if we did this? Wouldn't it be crazy if we did that? Because then you're really expanding the imagination rather than, coming and going, well, I don't know if that's going to be practical. Is that going to work? There's no room for the analyst. It's just
Yeah.
pure, let's see what happens with this. And as you continually unpack that, oh my God, you find so many gold nuggets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like it's going a lot of it, I think, especially when it comes to poetry and stuff, is going outside the sphere of like logic, you know? Like I guess some people will criticize poetry and it's like what are similes like or like metaphors? It's I guess some people almost don't want to like see outside the sphere of like literality, and because I think that's a big thing, and something that we were really experiencing in this one philosophy class that I did is how almost weird words are and how they don't actually like encompass absolutely everything. And that is how, I'm sorry, I think there's something happening upstairs, but um they don't encompass absolutely everything, and that's why like paintings and in a sense poetry work, because they almost like break their own role, like the words somehow become greater than themselves. And so that is the sort of beauty of film, and that's the real beauty of poetry, and I think that's why I really wanted to work with that in this film sense.
Well, it's cool because like I was just chuckling about you hear the interviewer in there, and because I was getting flashbacks of like in Holy Grail where he's like, "What's your favorite color? Red? No, green." Ah! Then he just disappears. So the interviewer in here, he's like wrong. He's like, you just got the answer wrong, and you're wondering what's the consequence here. Like who? Like what's the premise of his interview? See, and that's what was so great about it. It was up to the viewer to figure out. She said. They answered two questions wrong. They only got one more try, and then what? Dun dun dun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's interesting because yeah, like I suppose I mean there's different ways of looking at it. The audience is able to make their own conclusion. Initially, what it was when it was in the stage play, because I ended up actually adapting the old stage scripts to film, and in the stage script there was just some other stuff, and there was almost a more concrete world which I intentionally took out in order to allow for the abstraction that the film does. But they were essentially within the city, leading these sort of unsatisfactory lives, just going amongst this sea that they couldn't really like find their own way in, and they wanted to go to the countryside, but this dystopian world, you have to go through a set of interviews to leave the city, and it's like a set of examinations in order to go. And so that was the initial stakes. It was that they were like, I have to escape this, and I have to go through this weird, like self-reflective interview process where I have to really like come to terms with myself in order to leave. So, which I guess is a sort of metaphor for no matter where you go, if you're not really like with at terms with yourself, then it's kind of hard to really escape. And I
You
mean, I
know,
guess the
yeah. No, go on. No, keep going, keep going.
I was going to say the audience can really like find their own metaphor and find their own meaning, and I think that's the beauty of stuff as well, is that like me coming out and saying that the movie was about say one thing is like one thing, but then the audience, what they get from it, that's its own truth in itself.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what you're just saying there reminds me of the old phrase, wherever you go, there you are. So it's like, no matter how you're going to change, no matter how much plastic surgery you're going to get, no matter what kind of clothes you're going to be wearing, no matter what kind of music you suddenly get yourself into, wherever you go, there you are. So it's like, you better be at peace. This is the only person you got to hang out with all the time. So you've got better find ways of either entertaining them or making them laugh about stuff or making them inspired about stuff, So it's like, it's really quite interesting, when you think about that aspect. Hold on. Let me let me
Oh my
shut
gosh,
that
somebody's
window real
breaking into
quick.
my car. Uh, is anybody noticing the green
Well, I
jacket
guess
guy?
that's going to be part of the charm of this interview. It's like the sound of the universe going, Listen, listen, listen. You
Listen,
guys, these guys are
listen
speaking truth here. Listen, everybody.
through car horns. And they always said God showed himself in the most mysterious ways.
That's right. That's right. So what other kind of projects do you got hiding up your sleeves? I can only imagine that there's probably more, more interesting dystopian type stuff. Actually, to get back to what you were saying about the interviewer, about you got to go through a series of interviews to kind of get out of there. I mean, that would be a great movie. That premise. I mean, it's a great premise.
I think so. I part of where I got some inspiration from was the Netflix series Maniac with Emma Stone and his name 21 Jump Street, shorter guy.
Uh,
Oh,
I almost said Seth Rogen. It's the other. It's
sort of era.
what's his
But
name? I know you're
either
talking.
yeah, either way, they're sort of they're going through this experimental drug procedure to um like solve their one of them has schizophrenia and one has like a severe depression, and in that they sort of have to go through an interview where they have to reflect on their experience with this mind altering drug, and so like one of them has to deal with like one of their close relatives dying, and they have to like be truthful about that, and they really have to like, in order to show that the drug is working, because if they lie then they still have defense mechanisms, which goes against the whole premise of the drug. It's a really like deep, like psychologically deep but really moving series. I really recommend it.
Oh, cool. I'll
um,
check it out. Um,
yeah.
a little bit of what you're talking about kind of reminds me of Logan's Run. Have you ever seen that one?
No, I
That
haven't. what
sci-fi
what is
film?
that one?
Logan's Run, it basically, if you reach the age of, I think, 20, maybe I can't remember if it was 20 or 30, but
Hmm.
if you reach that certain age, what happens is well, you die. They kill you. They come after you, and so the whole idea is this guy trying to get out of, his name is Logan, so it's Logan's Run. He's running to get out of this place, and
uh,
so it's an interesting twist on that. Your method is much more of a gentle, like, that's a funny thing too, because like, what would wait on the other side of that interview? Is it just them saying, no, sorry, you can't go, or do they get another chance to have another interview, or
if if they get it wrong in the original stage play, they do it is eventually, through talking with each other, they do end up becoming honest and they all get out. It was two people going through the interview initially, and then I split it into about 8 people. But yeah, they get out in the end. It takes some reflection and some acceptance of the inner child. Like, they have to accept that they need to like get in touch with their child again, who they kind of had to shut away in order to fit within this really strict, concrete regime. Or like, yeah, and so that is kind of. But what does lie on the other side is the countryside, and from there, uh, they let it go. Like that. That's where the story ends, and that's kind of hinted at with that shot before the credits of the car just rolling through the countryside and the different shots of green and stuff, and that was kind of representative of that. Yeah.
it's really cool, man. It's such a great idea, and yeah, it's really cool. I could tell, from your philosophy classes, you're putting philosophical ideas into these things. I mean, just the interviews that are in the uh that you hear the people talking about, in the closest thing to silence, when they're talking about, the daily grind, having to fit into this, little cubicle, basically, and 9 to 5, and you punch in and you punch out, and this is your, this is what your life is all about. Just here's what you do. Here's the hamster wheel that you're in, and you do a great job kind of showing that in this movie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it comes from just sort of the feeling I had growing up, because actually I grew up in Dubai. And that was definitely just an it was an interesting place to grow up because it was almost like everybody was constantly on like social edge.
What do you mean? What do you mean
Everybody
by that?
well, it just felt like there was this sense where the majority of people had almost this hyper awareness of how they were perceived. Like
Oh,
they and I got that sense even going back after being in England for quite a couple of years. And I mean, it's not to say that everybody in Dubai is like this. My brother found a really good way to live his way in Dubai, and he really got something good out of it. But with me, it was like you go to school and you almost have to be you're just so aware of how you're perceived socially because stuff can really turn.
wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, it was and then I felt something different having moved to England. um and then seeing the difference between these two places, it made me realize what I was feeling in Dubai, and I kind of got out of that and I kind of explored that, and that kind of wiggled its way into the movie a bit.
Wow, that's fascinating. You had to have the other experience to see the contrast, and yeah, that hyper aware of like I mean, I'm just getting images like feelings of like people sort of policing each other, huh? Like are they just very
Yeah,
nitpicky about stuff, or are you going to get in trouble if you don't do a thing, or
it's more like just a lot of judgment.
mm,
Like it's like there is this way of like being a teenager there, or even just being like an adult citizen, because it's I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's a police government, and they have this kind of model of like the ideal citizen. It's not as bad as like other countries in the world. It's more of like it's a more subtle social thing. you know
wow,
it's
wow, that's
yeah. I mean,
fascinating.
everybody has their own experience of like wherever they grow up, and I feel like
Yeah.
some people, they might feel differently, but yeah, that's just it. Kind of it was truthful, with me at least, and it seems to have had some effect within the movie.
Well, yeah, that's how you were able to write that stuff into the movie, because to be able to see that contrast, to
Hmm.
be able to see like what was really going on there. Gosh, man, that's so intriguing.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's just following life, and just by doing that, you have stuff to talk about, and really we all have our stuff to talk about. It's just, yeah, it depends on how you like put it out. I'm just glad I was
Jeez.
able to get it out and explore it.
Well, dude, you did a great job with this movie, and thank you so much for sending it into Kapow, and thank you so much for taking time today to talk to us and give us some insights and behind the scenes of what went on with this thing, because
Oh
it's going to be
man.
very inspiring for everyone who hears your story.
Oh man, and yeah, thank you for having me. Honestly, like every interview is, and just every conversation is a chance for me to like reflect on, like what kind of goes behind the movie, and then it just increases like a better understanding throughout everyone. And I'm glad I'm able to share something that I've lived through with people, and share something that I've created. It's really one of the best feelings.
Gosh, man. Well, thank you so much. And you guys, you gotta make sure to check out The Closest Thing to Silence by Aidan. It's a great movie, and it's going to be very inspiring for those of you who think that you need a big budget to make stuff. Because really, what it takes is just creativity and willingness to be open to new ideas, huh?
Yeah, I completely believe that.
Well, thank you so much, and you have a great day. And thank you everybody for watching. And take care.